are many of you who are excellent cooks and chefs that are watching tonight. I wanted to do a shout out to all the people who are here. We've got a childhood friend of mine from BC watching. We've got a friend of my sister's from Saskatchewan watching. We've got all kinds of people all over Ontario. So I'm really excited about that, and I hope that we have a fun evening. It's going to be action-packed. There's a lot to do in an hour, and I'm hoping that we'll have a chance to chat, have a question and answer period at the end for maybe 10 minutes. And we're at 10 after 7 now, so off we go. Tonight we're doing smoked trout pate that is going to be rolled up in crepes along with spinach. We're doing pork empanadas, which is, of course, all these recipes are somewhat modified from the original because that's what I do. I'm going to make some pastry because I love flour. I'm going to do some veggie skewers because you need that freshness and color. And our markets, wherever you are, there's farmers markets all over the place. Guelph Farmers Market, Oshawa, Hagersville, Dunnville, all these areas have amazing farmers markets, and they're just beginning to get this abundance of fresh vegetables and fruits now. And everything else, baking, honey, maple syrup, all kinds of stuff, meats. All right, so let's get started. First, I'm going to, what should I do first? Okay, let's do this. Let's do the smoked trout pate first, because I did it earlier today, of course, because magical kitchens, right? Everything is already done. So, but not exactly the case. So this is some of Dan Beston's plain smoked trout, which is super, like just on its own, it's really good. And I've broken it up roughly, and I've removed the skin. So when I worked at Twisted Lemon, we serve salmon all the time, and it was excellent. But a lot of people don't like the skin on salmon. There are people who take skin off chicken too, which I also think is tragic. So what I used to do, if I happened to be still, either prepping or if I was online that night and people were pulling this amazing skin off the salmon, I would take the skin and I would cut it in shreds and I would throw it in the oven, crisp it right up. Delicious. Beautiful garnish. I've done that with some, I'm saving the skin. I've done that with some skin already for garnishing, oops. For garnishing the crepes once we've got them made. Now, the main thing, the key thing in working in a restaurant kitchen, actually working in a home kitchen, it helps a lot too, is multitasking. So what I've got is, at the same time, I've got some water heating up here for a raspberry coulis. And I wanted to do that because it takes a couple of minutes. I've got some sugar here that I'm going to add. I'll add this sugar. So I'm adding sugar to the already heated water. I'm just going to, okay, so I have your recipes here. I'm doing some cut down versions of them so that I can actually get through everything today, but I want to show you the method. So what you want is you want the sugar to dissolve, and then you want to put the fruit in. With a coulis, it's basically like a thick fruit sauce, and you want to keep as much of the freshness of the fruit as possible. So I've got these absolutely gorgeous raspberries. I had planned on having like a side cam, but unfortunately that didn't work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this to show you these, beautiful raspberries. Oh yeah, I did have something else. Here we go. I last used this headlamp when I was wandering through a pond in early March with Mary Garcher looking for salamanders. So look, there, you can see the color of the raspberries. Isn't that beautiful? There you go. I got these at Kent Creek Berries. So I'm going to put those in there, just like that. And we're not going to boil them. We're going to cook them just until they soften a little bit. And then I'm going to strain them. And it is the most pure, most beautiful raspberry flavor that you've ever experienced. It is so worthwhile doing that. I also, this morning, well, okay, yesterday, I ran around and got some things from our local producers because I really wanted to highlight what they had. So I got some strawberries, and you may have read, oh, this is cream cheese I'm putting into the pate now. So right now I've got trout and I've got cream cheese and I'm mashing them together. There's easier ways to do this. You can use an immersion blender. I'm not going to use an immersion blender here because I wanted to actually get across the idea that you don't really have to have big expensive equipment appliances in order to do these recipes. You can actually do them mostly by hand, and I'll get back to the berries in a minute because I realized I left that. Actually, I worked somewhere where I had a chef who made us whipped cream by hand. I still don't really understand it. It was, you know, even to service, even when someone's waiting for dessert, he'd say, "Here's the whisk." I think they finally stopped doing that. I don't know. All right, so you can vary the proportion of trout in the recipe. What I really, and now I'm putting some lemon juice in for flavor. I made a few adjustments here just for myself, if you happen to see the recipes. What I want to say too is trust your own sense of taste. Taste everything as you're going along and trust your own sense of taste because that is going to be your most accurate guide. Keep the relative proportions of the main ingredients, but when it comes to salt and pepper and spices and other seasonings and things like lemon juice, let your own taste be your guide, and that will develop gradually, and you'll get a better sense of what you like and what works for you. So I'm putting in a bit of salt and pepper now, and I'm also putting in a little bit of mustard. I thought I had dry mustard, but I don't. But this is an old-fashioned Dijon, so just all of that. Right, so, oh yeah, the berries. So I got strawberries too yesterday. And you know, we've had these bruising hot temperatures lately, which are really hard on things like strawberries. So they ripen super fast. So if you buy berries at the market right now or tomorrow, be sure that you use them right away. Use them either fresh, or if there's some that are a little too ripe for fresh, make a coulis or sorbet out of them. I made a strawberry rhubarb sorbet this morning that I'll show you a bit later. All right, these berries are just about ready. Raspberries, strawberries, and rhubarb have a bit of body to them, so that when you actually strain them for a coulis or sorbet, they have a bit of body to them, which is really nice. It just makes things so much nicer. So, easy. Done the first recipe, super. Coulis. I'm straining the raspberries because raspberries are amazing with their flavor, but the seeds are not so nice. So I'm straining out the seeds, and I'm sure, I know my sister's watching. Hi, Wendy. I'm sure Wendy has a recipe for using the seeds, but I compost them because I don't have that kind of patience. So you'll find with raspberries that you have a fair bit of, I wonder, can't really see that. You'll have a fair bit left of, there you go. It's okay though. Whenever I make anything with raspberries, I'm always reminded of my grandmother. Okay, first recipe done, coulis. So what you do is you chill this, and then it makes the most incredible sauce. And you can also use it in a sorbet, and I used it in a granita this morning, which I'm going to explain to you a bit when we get to the dessert part, even though we're going back and forth a bit because this is cooking. raspberry sorbet. Oh, this is, oh, how do I do this? You gotta see the color of this. Oh, no, you can't even see it. Well, you'll be able to see it in the granita, but it is just the deepest, most beautiful red. So when you have that coulis, you can do many things with that. Or you can just put it over ice cream or, I don't know, over whipped cream. It doesn't matter, really. Okay, so coulis is done. And that I wouldn't keep in the fridge more than about 4 days. But raspberries always remind me of my grandmother because she used to make a raspberry vinegar that we'd always drink in the summer. It was the most amazing thing. Okay, got to get back on track here. So my smoked trout pate, I had put, I'm looking for my recipe. There we go. Yes, I put the mustard in. Ah, the cloves. Garlic, there's the garlic. Okay, so yeah, you're actually going to see me using a knife. If you are right-handed, look away, because it seems like nobody who is right-handed can watch someone who's left-handed cut things. That's okay. So I'm rough chopping that. I actually want to really chop it. Well, this is a kitchen gadget moment. This is a mezzaluna. It saves your wrists from that repetitive strain motion. Oh, that's cool. It's like slow motion. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, it's wonderful for herbs. I use it for herbs all the time. And it really does save a lot of effort. So we put the pepper in. I don't have dill, so I'm not putting dill in. I tried some, I think I put some, no, that's pretty much it. But for sure, broil the skin from the trout. And for sure, taste it as you go along. I would use less lemon juice than is said there. I used less this time. I also used a little more trout. Things like this, you can modify without too much difficulty and not have a disaster, which is nice. So these are super great too. So in it goes. Yep, super. Now my board is garlic, so I have to remember that. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just put that together. How am I doing? Oh man, time is flying. Okay, so I'm going to throw this in the fridge. I have already got 2 examples to show you. This is doing it a coarse way. Okay, so this is like a coarse country pate that you've done entirely by hand, which is much easier than doing whipped cream by hand. And oh, I see one bone, but you know what? It's the first bone I've seen in this trout. It's really well filleted. So yeah, no worries there. Okay, so I'm just gonna put these things aside. And I'm gonna cover this, put it in the fridge. And that is, oh, okay, so I didn't add the scallions, which I have here. So I would normally add chopped green onions to this, and then it gives it a bit of color, makes it nice. The ones I have already prepared do have that. We're not quite ready to deal with those yet. Okay, so the next part of this recipe is crepes. So what I've done is I've done a half recipe of the crepe, and I have crepe batter in the fridge. And the reason for that is crepe batter needs to sit for about half an hour before you use it. So this I made in the morning. I'm wondering, in terms of time, no, you know what? I'm going to do it. And then we're going to do pastry, and then we're just going to keep rolling along here. So crepe batter, quite easy. Oh, eggs! I wanted to tell you, super neat. You know how you usually crack them against the side of a bowl? I mean, some of you may be able to do the trick with the one hand. I can't do that. This is something that I saw in Ottawa, and you just tap them on the. Yeah, of course, it's not going to work this time. You just tap them on the counter, and then it's quite easy to open them. And you don't have those sharp edges that cut into your fingernails. Maybe this does not happen to you. There, done. All right. Whisk. So I'm into crepes, so I've got 2 eggs. And I'm whisking them first because I want to make sure that they're nicely whisked before I deal with them. What I'm just going to do here, because this board is bothering me a bit, I'm just going to move it up a little bit. There we go. So I've already thinned some cream with water. I would recommend use milk instead of cream. Cream changes the consistency a little bit of the crepe batter, and you have to keep adding more water. So go with milk. And then after the crepe batter has sat chilled, then what you can do is you can add a little more water if you need to adjust for the consistency. So I always add a little bit of sugar to my crepe batter too. I didn't mention that. Make sure, if you've got things measured out beforehand, make sure that you're adding the sugar, not the salt like that. Add. Okay, and I have, right, so I'm doing, oh, shoot. Okay, now I'm doing the full recipe of the crepe, sorry, didn't mean to mislead. I just want to show you, I just wanted to do this because I wanted to show you how quick crepe batter actually is to make, really. So then after you've done this, after you've whisked everything together, 2 large eggs, half a cup of water, half a cup of that, yep, cup of flour, yep. You whisk it until it's smooth, till you get all the lumps out. It's got a good consistency, and then you toss it in the fridge. And then when you bring it out, you're going to put it through a sieve. And that just smooths everything out. Make sure that you have a nice consistent batter. Okay, so there, that is done. There you go. Good. Wow, I didn't smell it. Good.
And Cindy, if I can just interrupt, somebody had a question. Are the eggs at room temperature? Crepes?
They weren't. They were close to room temperature, but they weren't. Oh, actually, let's just bring that out again because that brings something else to mind. The one item I forgot was the melted butter. Now the melted butter needs to be cooled before you add it. So I've got 1 ounce of melted butter that I'm mixing in. And I weighed it, but I also measured it using my tablespoon because I thought, okay, maybe you don't use a kitchen scale, or maybe you I don't know what a quarter stick is. So it's about 3 tablespoons of butter, melted and cooled. Yeah, you know what? In a perfect world, the eggs would probably be at room temperature, but I'm throwing it back in the fridge, so I don't think it makes a difference. If one of you has an opinion otherwise, please let me know. Always willing to learn or debate, depending. Okay, so now we can put it in the fridge. I know those of you who make crepes all the time are thinking, why is she not put butter in? So I did. All right, so with the magic of kitchens, the magical time-lapse kitchen, I have finished crepe batter there. So now, here's the thing. You can use a frying pan for crepes. It's not easy. I've tried, right? So a crepe pan is a really good thing to have. They're not that expensive. Canadian Tire sells them in many places. This is like a Starfrit, so it's, yeah. Medium-high temperature. I usually find, especially if I haven't made crepes for a while, it takes me, actually even when I have, it takes me a crepe or 2 before the crepes actually look nice. So I'm just whisking butter back into my crepe batter that had risen to the surface. So you want to make sure everything is nicely combined there. what I'm going to do is I'm going to cook one crepe just to show you, and then I've got some crepes I made earlier that I'm going to use. So while those are happening, I'm going to make pastry. Let's see if I can make pastry in the 4 minutes that it takes for that crepe to cook. All right, I'm making a half of the pastry. So I've got 2 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour. I do not use pastry flour. Some people do. I find it's too soft. I find it's too fragile. And I like to have a flour that I can use for anything, right? I can use it for bread. I can use it for pastry. I can use it for crepes. And there's no issue. So what I just did there was I don't always measure. I just put some salt into that pastry, and close your eyes, Wendy, some sugar. Just because it brings up the flavors a little, it makes it nice. It's just a little more flavor. Now, what I did earlier was I took my shortening. So it's ready. I took my shortening and my butter, and I cubed them, and then I put them in the freezer so they'd be nicely chilled. This will make a lot of difference when it comes to how nice your pastry turns out. So now I'm going to put them in here all at once, like that. Pastry blender. I'm just going to stir this in a little bit. What you want to do is you want to cut in the lard and the butter until it becomes small, sort of almost the size of peas. So how am I doing? Oh, not bad. What I may do, because I'm running a little short on time, and I really I can get back to this at the end for the question and answer and finish it during then if you like, just so that you can see. But I want to be able to go through the process of all these things. So I'm going to describe what you should see, and then I'm going to show you some finished pastry, and we'll get on with making the empanadas. And that way, there will be no breaking things. Oh, I'm going to get that crepe on now. All right, I'm going to put a tiny bit of butter. Should not do that. Just going to use wax paper, and that's probably not a good idea. No, you know what? I'm going to put a tiny bit of oil on that instead, just to make things quick. Just a little bit of oil on the crepe pan. Just needs to be seasoned a tiny bit. And I'll just distribute that. This is something we might do on a barbecue with a pair of tongs, but don't do this at home. There we go. All right, so what you're gonna do, depending on the size of your crepe pan, I said 2 tablespoons, but possibly with your crepe pan, you'll wanna use 1. If you have this size, that's about 1 tablespoon of crepe batter. This is not gonna be a beautiful crepe. I apologize for that, here we go. But you'll see the general method. Right, get back to the pastry. Let's see. Oh yes, so this pastry is for the empanadas. The empanadas, I cooked the pork ahead of time. Everyone knows how to brown pork in a pan, so I wasn't going to show you that step because I have great faith in your ability to cook. So, however, pastry can sometimes be a little bit tricky, so I did want to show you the steps for that anyway. What I'm going to do with this pastry, I think at the end, because we're at 25 to 8 now, I don't want this to be all about pastry, although maybe I should, well, anyway. So I'm thinking about that crepe behind me so that it doesn't hopefully burn. Looking okay. So at this stage, where you've got the fat mixed into the flour, and that's about right. I usually do it just a bit more, but that's okay. At this stage, I'm going to put this in the fridge. So that way the fat stays cold and it doesn't affect the flour really. I had to do this a number of times at Twisted Lemon because stuff happens. Orders arrive, things happen. Lunch starts, whatever. Okay, so that's away for the moment. We'll put these things out of the way. And we'll look at this crepe. Now crepes, it's interesting. You would think that that you couldn't actually turn a crepe by hand, but you can if you're careful. Crepes also have one pretty side and one not pretty side. The first side that you cook is all lacy and nice, and the second side is covered with brown spots. So if you are doing this as a sort of a presentation, which you probably are, then you want to have the pretty side up so people can see that. All right, so what I'm doing now, you can't see me, I'm just at my fridge. I'm taking out some of the pastry that I made this morning and looking at my crepe, which is cooking. All right, so I'm flipping the crepe over. I did that by hand. If you get the edge of it, you're not likely to burn yourself, really. Just, you know, take care. Don't let your kids do that if you have kids. But, you know, okay. Okay, so here's some pastry that's done. So that flour and fat that's in the fridge, what I would do is I would take a measuring cup and I would whisk the egg and I would add some water and then I would add vinegar and then I would chill that while I was making the flour mixture and then mix that in just enough so that the pastry all holds together. This is pastry that's ready to go. Now, I'm gonna hold it close and see if you can see. Yeah, I think you should be able to see. You can see bits of fat and bits of butter mixed in. And even though there's a small proportion of butter, it adds beautiful flavor. Really, just lovely flavor to the final product. So I'm gonna flatten that out a little bit. And what I'm going to do is roll it out. What I'm doing is I'm preparing some of this for the empanadas. Now, of course, you can use this for anything. You can use this for fruit pies. You can make little, like, you could throw some raspberries and some sugar in some of that and bake it in the oven the same way with the empanadas. And then you have little fruit pies. Of course, this is the same pastry that I use for tarts and stuff too. I do not use the empanada dough recipe that I got the filling, well, except that I modified it, because I modified them all. But anyway, I don't use that pastry because it tends to be a harder pastry, and I like a light flaky pastry for an empanada. It's really nice. So what I'm doing is I am basically rolling this out on a well-floured board. I would use my counter at the back, but you couldn't see. And then I am looking for, okay, so take whatever you have, right? Just use that. You don't have to have a special cutter. You really don't. So what I'm going to do is just pull the rest of this pastry away. I'm actually not going to use that. I'm just going to show you the one because I did actually bake some empanadas earlier. Thank goodness. Oh, shoot. So this is a little too far for crepe. You could still eat this for sure. You could roll it up, roll something up and use it, but as crepes tend to overcook, they tend to get quite brittle. So then those edges are actually quite brittle. And that's a little darker than you want, really. So yeah, so that did as well. So we'll just turn that burner off so that we're safe. Here we go. Oh well, easy come, easy go. Okay, so we have that beautiful thing ready. So I cooked this lovely ground pork And this is from the Port Rowan Farmers Market. This is from Perry's Corners. And it's really nice. I mix, I've got some black currants here, so dried black currants, right? So they're like raisinish. They're not exactly like the black currants that we have fresh here, not to confuse things. And I also have some lovely scallions that I'm going to mix in as well for the color. So got all of that. And I'll just mix that together. This pork, I've already put spices in, so it's already got spices. Oh yes, please look at the recipe. As I say, I don't really measure. So when I was looking at my recipe this morning, I was a little appalled and realized that I'd suggested you add way too much cloves and mace. So go a lot less. I had a quarter teaspoon, go about half of that or a little less even. So anyway, so easy basic mixture, right? You can put anything in this. The original recipe for empanadas actually includes, it uses beef, it doesn't use pork. But I thought be good with pork. And pork takes spices really well. So yeah, I put a little less chili in too. So yeah, you don't want to go with too much filling, or it's going to seep out the sides or totally burst, which is not what you want. So I've got a simple egg wash here, which is just an egg whisked, or use a fork, whatever. And I'm just going around the edge here, and just like that, all around, and then bring it together. And voila, you have your empanada. You can make these any size, you know. I usually make them about half that size. The ones that I made this morning are about half that size. Now you're going to put it in a 400-degree oven. Actually, let me nicely go through the steps. I feel like I'm rushing you a bit, even though many of you have made this before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a fork to just make sure that those edges are sealed. And then I'm going to put this away. And then what we're going to do is take, this pastry brush. Now this pastry brush, it's like one of those silicone ones. It's really, like, ooh, strange. I was in culinary school and, what was that? 2007, I don't know. Anyway, I had this because I bought all kinds of gear for it. I had this, and this chef from BC, who was one of our instructors, came along. Okay, so I've just done an egg wash, and now I'm doing slits in the top to let the air out so that everything can work nicely. This is going in at a 400-degree oven for about 8 minutes, and then I'm going down to 375 until it's golden and wonderful. So he saw my pastry brush, all right? And I had used a lot of the ones, the natural hair or whatever they are, brushes, and you're always losing hairs on your pastry. It's horrible, like you're picking these bristles off your pastry. And he looked at this and he said, what a piece of junk that is. Well, it's still here. I've gone through a lot of pastry brushes. This is a wonderful thing. So there you go. Right, so put this out of the way. I've got an empanada in there, and I should have set the timer. I'm setting the timer now. I should have set the timer for the crepe too, but it's water under the bridge. It's gone. Okay. So we got the empanada in the oven, crepes. You're in here. All right. So I'm going to show you what a crepe should look like. I'm trying to rush. Okay. This is the unpretty side of a nice crepe. Oh, this is how they should be, right? Just like that. And this is the pretty side. See how lacy and nice that is? And just lightly brown. It's pretty. Crepes are wonderful. You can make them ahead of time. You can freeze them in a pile, bring them out, defrost them. So wonderful to use. So what I'm going to do first because this has flour on and this has garlic on it. Oh yeah, I want to show you that. Oh shoot. Okay, it's all good. I'm going to clean this off. If you don't have one of these, you can use a light switch cover. It works really well too, right? Just scrapes everything away wonderfully. And you may have seen that I had a damp paper towel underneath my cutting board, and that keeps it still. All right, we might get done here. There we go. All right, so pâté, yeah. Where are you? Good. All right, so I did this 2 different ways this one. I did it the way that I just did it before, except that, so there's the coarse, there's the coarse. And then I took an immersion blender to it and did it really fine. So that is actually puree like that, which is nice for campus. Oh, that reminds me, yeah. Oops. Okay, I have, so you can use this. Okay, so this is the other thing that I'm going to show you. Well, hardly show you. These are my croissantini, which I came up with when I was working with Laura Ferreira. Hey, at Norfolk Golf and Country Club years ago. We had some slightly stale croissants, so I cut them into slices, toasted them until they were like this, like hard, crispy, wonderful. And then you can use them for canapes. You can use them for other things, but we're using them for maple crostini a little bit, croissantini a little bit later. So what I'm doing now is I'm putting some smoked trout pâté on my crepe. And then I'm going to put the spinach on it, which, let's say, I seasoned. I par cooked it. Well, okay, I blanched it last night, so that it would be ready and cool. Because you do want that to be cool, right? Because this pâté has cream cheese in it, so if you put something hot on the cream cheese, then it's all going to be an oozy mess. So that is not what you want. You want things to be nice. So I'm taking some of the spinach, and I'm just going to put it across like this, and then I'm just going to roll it up. Now, what you want to do is fold in your sides a bit too, and then you have just something that is really nice and neat. And almost everybody likes crepes, and you can use anything in crepes at all. So there you have something that's lovely, but then what you can also do, of course, is you can cut it in sections so that you have something quite pretty, actually. And what you can do with that is you can serve them on the tray like that. You'll notice most of this food you can do that with. It's so that it reduces dishes, it reduces the number of times people have to hang around the food, right? Of course it didn't work. They can just like take these things away, and they don't have to do dips or stuff. So it's all good. All right, so we're 10 to 8, so I have to pick up the pace a little bit here. Where is the other thing I'm looking for? Oh yeah, fridge, good. Good, okay. All right, so now we're gonna do the chocolate mousse. Right, I've got 5 minutes on that yet, so this is good. I'm gonna put this away so that it is good, and put this away. All right, so these are going back to the fridge. Perfect. In retrospect, this many recipes might have been a little bit ambitious. However, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you quickly here. I don't have to explain this very much. Veggie skewers. You can mix up a dressing. You can use a jar. Makes it really easy. I've got some olive oil in here. I've put some rice wine vinegar, some salt, some pepper, and whatever spices or herbs you like. And then you just shake that up and pour it over the veggie skewers. So I'm just using long, these are not quite toothpicks, they're longer. And again, a bunch of these on your fruit table for your picnic, for your Port Rowan patio picnic. Quite pretty. And it's using all fresh vegetables you can get at market now, including these lovely edible potted peas, which what I've actually done is I blanched those just so that they would have a nice texture to them, or color rather, pardon me. Okay, here we go. Mousse. Okay, I'm doing a half recipe of the ricotta mousse. I use the ricotta that's 10% milk fat. It's called traditional. I find it's got the nicest flavor and that it buzzes up nicely with an immersion blender. So I'm using that. I'm pouring in maple syrup. Got a half cup of maple syrup I'm putting in there. It looks like a lot, but you would be surprised because this next ingredient, which is right here, is good. Raw cacao powder, which is not very much like the cocoa powder that you get that's been alkalized, or whatever that word is, in the store. It's not very much like that. It thickens up when you add it to water. It's the coolest thing. And also it mixes in really nicely. If you're using something like Fry's cocoa powder or another commercial cocoa powder in your mousse, then I would advise that you use a small sieve to sieve out the lumps. Otherwise, the lumps will never come out, and that is very demoralizing when you're a cook. So, immersion blender. Yes, I think it's going to reach. We'll see. So, immersion blenders are really useful for things like this. You can make this mousse without blending it, but you do not get that smooth, wonderful texture, which is what you want. So I'm going to make a little bit of noise here. So I'm just blending these three ingredients together. Until I get a nice smooth texture. You probably want to stop from time to time and just scrape down the sides like you would for any recipe. Make sure everything is included and incorporated. A little bit more. Yes, go. Come on. There, done. I mean, how quick a dessert is that? And the great thing about it is that raw cacao powder is very good for you. And ricotta is also, you know, protein. And maple syrup is just delicious, so there's no problem with that. One of my friends asked me if I was going to provide some gluten-free and dairy-free suggestions. So I didn't say yes or no, but a little tricky for this. If any of you, Wendy, or perhaps some other friends that are out there who don't eat as much dairy as I do, if you have suggestions, you know, during the chat or afterwards, you're welcome to offer that. So I'm going to put, good. Okay, so that empanada is doing pretty well. I'm going to set the timer again for 15 minutes and reduce the temperature to 375. There we go. Okay, good. Right, so now I'm going to quickly show you the crossantini. I'm going to clean my board off because it is a bit of a mess. And I apologize for the amount of saran wrap I'm using. normally I would use less and I would use containers, but I used most of my containers during this, so well. There we go. Okay. Yeah, that's not perfect, but it's better. So for the croissantini, so these are beautiful butter croissants that are at the Port Rowan Farmers Market. And all I did was slice them, I let them stale a bit, which seemed like a criminal shame. You can also do this with grocery store croissants. So what you're doing is you're looking for something about that thick. And you're going to toast them in the oven. They take about 10 minutes per side at 400 degrees. And then you end up with these lovely things that you can use for desserts, which is super exciting. Okay, so I'm going to show you now. This is what the finished empanadas should look like. Okay, they should be a nice brown, just a nice light golden brown color, and they'll be super flaky. And you could serve some kind of a sauce with them if you wanted, but yeah, it's not essential. So that's what those look like. Very very nice, and you can prepare them ahead, which is super great. And you saw the smoked trout. So when you're putting things together, of course, you can build your plate up with a skewer and an empanada and some smoked trout pate and crepes with spinach. All those great things. Super. So now we're close to the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put together one dessert to show you, and then we'll open it up for questions. I think these are sherry glasses. These are my grandmother's, and the funny thing is, she took an oath of sobriety when she was a teenager. That's not the funny part. That's not quite what I meant. So I thought there was never any alcohol during family gatherings, but actually, my sister burst that bottle. She straightened me out and said, actually, it was hidden from my grandmother, but it was there. So things you think. Anyway, this is chocolate mousse. So yeah, these are probably sherry glasses, but at my grandmother's house, they were always parfait glasses. So if you went for lunch or dinner and you opened up the fridge and you saw these and they were layered with all kinds of delicious, custard and fruit and cream, it was such an exciting thing. So I'm going to do something similar for you right now. What I did with some of the raspberries yesterday is I made a granita. And the way I did that was I took this raspberry coulis and I took some of this hard cider from the Hounds of Uri, which is also at Port Rowan Farmers Market online. They have some lovely ciders and some really nice wine. They have a really good white wine that goes beautifully with sort of picnic fare. So what I did was I made a granita, which is basically was the coulis, some of the cider, frozen in a pan, and you scrape it every once in a while with a fork, and then you end up with these beautiful crystals of flavor. So using that, and I'm using some of this lovely fruit. Where are those? Oh, okay. So I have some. Oh, I used the raspberries. Shoot. Okay. All right, I lost track a little bit there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of this lovely granita, which is of course going to melt fairly soon, but that's okay, on top, and a couple of berries, and a little bit of lovely chocolate mint that Betty brought me. So there you have just a nice full dessert. And the perfect thing to have with that would be some cider. Actually, this is their Doghouse hard cider, which is not sweet. Their other ciders are fairly sweet. They're very nice. They just burst with flavor. But if you tend to like beer more, then you like that better. That chocolate mousse, you'd be amazed at the flavor that's there. It's wonderful. So I'm going to put this granita back in the fridge. See, there's just a nice little dessert. You can set up the mousse ahead of time. You'd want to set up the granita a little bit just before service. If you do it that way, you can serve it separately too. And I think there was something else I wanted to do there, but I don't remember what it was. So I'm just going to check on that empanada. It's in the oven, and we are at our time. And I managed not to burn myself, and there is a finished empanada. And there we go. Thank you very much. I didn't get quite so far as I wanted through a couple of the recipes, but you have the recipes here. And aside from those slight changes I suggested in a few places, everything else is good. And if you have any issues with recipes or you have questions, you can send me an email. If you don't have my email, then you can get in touch with Carla and she will be able to answer any questions you have. Oh, that's what I wanted to do, shoot. Okay, the reason I made these croissantini. Okay, just give me 1 second because this was my crowning glory for, yeah. All right, I've just put some maple syrup in here, and I'm just putting this croissantini directly in the maple syrup. And then you've got that crunchy texture as well. There, crunchy maple syrup. You can pour whipped cream over this too if you want. You don't have to do that. That's probably enough. Thank you very much. It's been fun. I've got cleanup to do now, man. But I am so happy to be here this evening with you guys. So I'm ready to hear from all of you now. I'm just going to put this in the fridge. Excellent.
Thank you, Cindy. That was amazing. Those look like great recipes. If anybody wants to ask a question, feel free to unmute yourself. And
good job.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So I'm going to have some of this hard cider while you ask me questions. I can answer questions for as long as you like. All good.
Hi, Cindy. With the blender, you don't have to use that blender. You can just do it by hand.
Yeah, that's Word.
Yes, it is. Good to see you.
Good to hear from you. Yeah, you can make the smoked choke pate by hand. Just Rosie. Talk about this. Come on. Okay. No worries. Yeah, you can just you can break up the trout with a fork or by hand, or you could mash it with a potato masher too if you want. Make sure that you get your cream cheese somewhat softened first, and maybe even mix the lemon juice into it first, and then mix in the trout. And that gives you something that's got a little more texture to it. So that's kind of nice. I mean, and the flavors are all there.
Yeah, so the cream cheese would probably be put out about an hour before then, just so it's softening up?
It depends on your cream cheese, but I took that cream cheese out 10 minutes before the session started. So you might find that you don't need that much time even.
Okay.
Maybe cube it up in a bowl, right? Because then that speeds up the process.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Cindy, it's not a question, but there was a suggestion. I think Wendy gave us for a vegan version of the chocolate mousse. Try using soft tofu instead of ricotta.
I knew there would be a soybean alternative. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I knew Wendy would know for sure. Oh, and the crepes. Oh shoot, I had an alternative for the crepes too. If you know anyone who has grapes, who's growing grapes or has wild grapes in their backyard, there's a lot in Norfolk County. go out and get some grape leaves, blanch them in water a bit, and then use those for the smoked trout pate with spinach. Sort of a Greek thing, right? You just use the grape leaves, or you could use kale. You could do the same thing with kale. So there's some alternatives.
Oh my goodness, that's a great idea. Kale and smoked trout, that would be lovely.
Mhm.
Yeah, my kale's doing really well. So if anyone wants it, just, you know.
Likewise, I'd share.
Something else I did yesterday, those the strawberries that I had. Now, if you're used to grocery store strawberries, they last forever in the fridge, right? But our fresh strawberries, you need to use them right away. So if you have some that are softer, you can use them in a sorbet too. I did a strawberry rhubarb sorbet this morning, and that's really nice. Again, if you don't have ice cream maker, sorbet maker, you can do a granita, and you don't have to put booze in it. You can just, just be the straight fruit syrup. That works too.
Good to know.
Sorry, I couldn't go through the whole process of the pastry, but kind of ran out of time. I could do it now, but I think we'd lose people. I really do. Maybe not.
You're not losing anybody. we're all here.
Okay, well, I guess, yeah. Well, you know what? Well, why don't I make pastry until people fade away? Do I hear someone talking in the background, or is it just someone that's not muted? Because if you have a comment that you can like talk to me directly. You don't have to chatter in the background. Yeah. Oh, pastry alternative. Here we go. I have used Bob's Red Mill all-purpose flour, or gluten-free flour, and it can be substituted in for this pastry if it has a xanthan gum in it. If it doesn't have the xanthan gum, you can buy xanthan gum separately. I did this because I have a few friends who are gluten-free, and I have a few family members who are gluten-free. Hey, Wendy. So in order for them to eat my butter tarts and pies on occasion, I make gluten-free pastry. Also, I've heard that there's a bakery in Port Dover that sells gluten-free flour mix. What's the name of that bakery again, Betty?
Trish's Bakery.
Yeah, and Betty's made some cakes with that you would not know that they were gluten-free. So it's a really nice mix, and that's a good way to go too. So. Is Martha out there? Martha, you might have some suggestions for gluten-free. No, silence, except for my cat. Yeah, okay. So yeah, those are a few other alternatives you have. So I would say trust your culinary instincts. Trust your ability to come up with your own flavors. Look at recipes, use the basic proportions, although you'll notice I kind of drifted away a few times from some of them. I tend not to as much with pastry. I have a few times with bread. Sometimes it works, sometimes not. So there's some things that you have to keep more or less to the same proportions. But when it comes to seasonings, when it comes to flavors, trust your instincts on that and taste as you go. Taste the pate as you're making it. Taste the empanada mix as you're making it. Add more cloves or less. Cloves can make things bitter. That's why I really wanted to suggest that you modify the recipe if you use that. But yeah, and add other things in. When I was doing the smoked pate this afternoon, I added capers because I love the flavor of capers. So that, or you might have some fresh herbs out in the garden, or a neighbor might have some herbs they've given you. So you can use those too.
Cindy, can I just mention one thing? I forgot to mention that we have prizes too. If you take Cindy's recipes and try them at home, and then you send us a picture or you post it on Facebook. There'll be a link for that. We'll put you in a draw and you can win one of those nice aprons that Cindy.
Yeah, look at this. Yeah, closer here, you can see it is.
We
It's
just got these made for the market. And you could be wearing one too.
you could
Try the recipes.
you too could be wearing one of these.
Yeah.
There you go.
Send more details about that in the email.
And there's going to be more cooking demos this summer online. Other cooks in the area are going to be demonstrating other things you can do with the wonderful ingredients that you find at the market. So, you know, you feel welcome to tune into those. I'm sure I will. You always have something else you can learn, right? And yeah.
When you talked about the crepes, as you said, usually the first one or two don't turn out the way you want them, and I guess it's because of the temperature of the frying pan at the time. But I've also had the crepes the following morning. Like if I have crepes in the afternoon for lunch, then I could actually keep them in the fridge. I've even frozen them, yes, and had them the next day. You know, they warm up fairly quickly, and they're still good. I guess what I'm saying, you can probably eat them within 12 hours of making them. You're probably okay.
I've kept crepes in the fridge for 2 or 3 days.
Really?
So.
Okay.
Yeah, they keep pretty well. But yeah, if you're not going to use your full batch, then you should freeze. You know what you don't need. But,
well, usually with the crepes, I'll make about 6, and usually by about within 12 hours, they're all gone because I love crepes. And I was given a recipe a number of years ago by a friend of mine, and I usually make the crepes at certain Christmas time. I make them. And I'll make them on Easter as well, but I really do enjoy them, and I've enjoyed the cooking demonstration this evening, Cindy, as well.
Thanks very much. Yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in. I appreciate the interest, and it was fun, and to have a chance to use fresh ingredients from Norfolk County and some of the other counties around the area. I was very happy to have a chance to do that. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Cindy, for showcasing our Port Rowan Farmers Market. All of the ingredients were available or are available at the market, online, or shopping in person this Friday from 3 to 6. And we appreciate what you have done for us here today. I'm such a foodie and I love to try new things. So definitely these will be going on in the kitchen very soon. Thank you.
Thanks.